welcome everybody and welcome to our first, hopefully very, very live webinar. Today we are going to talk about how to thrive during unwanted change. This is part of our Navigating Change webinar. My name is Desi Jagger and I'm a certified leadership coach. I help teams and leaders to navigate complex changes such as post-merger integration and organizational restructure.
And I'm Tanya Tashiva. I'm a change management consultant. I help companies with navigate their organizational process and behavior changes and in overall to reach their next maturity level. With our love for change and navigating change, helping organizations thrive, people thrive in organizations, Desi and I decided to start a series of webinars together where we combine over 20 years of combined experience from a lot of countries, international companies, small and big. And in general, we love to share our tips, tricks, knowledge, expertise, sometimes questions, because change is also about questions, about navigating change, and in general, this dynamic world we're living in and navigating business realities for the better of organizations. Today, we are getting together for the topic of how to thrive during unwanted change. And I'm very excited to have Desi tell us more from her experience, because this is very much, she shares something personal and professional with this topic. So Desi, I really would like to dive into the roles of unwanted change with you. But before we do that, I'm very curious to hear, how would you describe the thriving part? What is actually to thrive?
Very good question. What does it mean to thrive? For me, I'll start with what thriving is not. Thriving is not merely surviving. So it's not just about making it through to the end, but thriving is about making the most of the experience, even if it's unwanted change. Thriving for me is about being fully alive, being fully in the present, and truly living through what is happening. And thriving is a matter of mindset. And I talk a lot about what is mindset and why mindset is important in everything that I do. But thriving, as opposed to surviving, is a mindset choice. Talia, you are muted. The most famous line these days.
Very interesting. Yeah, it had some background noise that didn't depend on me, so I decided to mute myself. Yeah, I love that what you're saying. That is very much about mindset. Yet, when it's unwanted, it just hits us, right? And we might not even have that much energy, time to manage the mindset. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about actually what happens to us as humans when we get hit by an unwanted change.
I love the expression that you're using there, getting hit by an unwanted change. Very often when difficult change comes, it slaps us in the face. We're not expecting it. We haven't even acknowledged the possibility of whatever event ever happening. And it's a shock. And so what happens in us is a very primal reaction. And I won't talk a lot about fight or flight, because we all know about that sort of response. Fight or flight puts us in a survival mode. And as we talked in the beginning, thriving is about getting out of the survival mode and actually creating something out of the situation. So when we are hit with change, some things that I have observed in myself and also in my clients is a lot of fear. Fear is present in the mind, fear is present in the body. What is going to happen of me, right? So if we imagine a situation of a merger and acquisition, there's an announcement that your company is being acquired by a larger organization. Often the first thing in people's minds is the fear of what's going to happen to my job, right? What am I going to lose? How will I have to compete? And this way of thinking, which is coming from fear, creates a bit of a narrow-mindedness, and it creates a scarcity mindset. Coming from a place of scarcity, not enough, of limitations. And the more we come from that mindset of scarcity, the more we narrow our vision into a tunnel vision of disaster. What will I lose? What bad things will happen to me? And as a result of that, we close into ourselves. We are not able to look around and spot any other opportunities that may be right in front of us, because we are narrowly obsessed by the fear of loss.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you say. And I think that the fear is actually what gets us stuck. It paralyzes us almost, and it comes very much from that corner of, what am I losing? That's kind of in the beginning of the change curve, isn't it? The denial, the fear, the I don't, almost like I can imagine, it's like I close my eyes and I don't want to look forward because I don't know how my trajectory from where I thought my present will be, my future will develop, this gets corrupted, right? And the inability to see further, because when it gets corrupted, all of a sudden you get like almost shifted into a new direction, right? And then you don't have any trajectory in front of you. And human brain works very much like this. We feel safe when we feel like we can predict things. And you get paralyzed. You get into that rejection immediately, resistance immediately mode, instead of focusing, instead of thinking, oh, something's new's coming up, what would that mean for me? Because the new might actually mean bigger things for you than what you currently have.
Yeah. And I think the key takeaway here is really to move towards your fear and not to move away from it. And moving away from our fear could mean different things. It could be I am turning a blind eye, I'm refusing to acknowledge the fear, or it might be I'm literally running away from it or trying to run away from it. When we do that, as you said, we get stuck in this, kind of illusion that we're going to escape the situation, when actually, when we face the fear, when we look into it, we're much more capable to break it down, to assimilate it, to process it, and to come out of the surviving mode and into thriving mode. And to ask ourselves, rather than what might I lose, as you said, to ask ourselves, what might I gain? What might be an opportunity? Or even when there isn't loss, to ask, how can I maximize the space between now and that loss? How can I make the most of it?
Yeah, I love what you're saying there, and it's also a little bit like taking the leap, isn't it? Sometimes, and connecting more with the unknown future rather than with the lost expectation.
Yes.
On your point for making the most out of it, there are a few steps though that are between the moment that you get hit by the unwanted change and that moment when you're like, oh, actually I can make something out of this. There is a process for individuals, especially in big organizations. There's a process that they need to go through. And naturally, we start that process from the position of a victim. This happens to me. There's a big conspiracy sometimes against how the business was going. And what I feel often is very much underneath that victim state is, especially when we have companies that have been there for a while, with people that have been there for a while, building the company years after years. Very often that victim mode is almost like, oh my God, what I've been putting life into, in my work, now it doesn't matter anymore. Now it's irrelevant. Now it's almost like a scrap because the company introduces a new strategy or says, oh, we need to take a different direction, or all of this developments of the past 10 years now have to be, rebuilt or restructured in a different way. And that naturally, I think, creates some insecurity, some anger within people, and puts you a little bit in that corner of the victim. It's like, this happens to me. It's like, I disagree with this. I put so much work in doing things from the past and trying to please the previous way of leadership, or maybe the previous leadership team, or the previous, if it's a merger coming up, it's like, now I've been working very well for the company so far, but now with all these changes, almost it feels like I'm not relevant anymore. So you naturally go into a victim mode. How can we move away from the victim state and go into that state of, thriving and looking for opportunities?
Yeah, it's a very natural process to go into victim mode at first. It's a very natural reaction. So I would say having a little compassion for ourselves, that we're not made of steel. We are made of human flesh and blood. And so, yes, we will feel sorry for ourselves very often, and adopt a victim mindset. Now, if we think about the importance of mindset, our mindset is like the prism through which we see everything. The glasses, the color of the glasses that we put on in the morning, that will color our entire day. This mindset creates our thoughts. Our thoughts in turn create our emotions. Our emotions in turn create our behavior, and our behavior further reinforces our mindset. And so when we start with with a mindset of victim, we get into a vicious cycle of negative thoughts, negative emotion, negative behavior, reconfirming poor me and somebody did this to me. Now, to the question of how do we step out of this vicious cycle, for me, change begins with your mindset. And if we want to create sustainable, long-lasting behavioral change, we must begin with the mindset. All right. How to shift away from this mindset? There's many different ways. So if you think about the kind of this vicious cycle, we can break the cycle at different points. If you're not able to shift your mindset or choose a different mindset, then you can also start to act differently or to think differently. But to give an example here, I'll give a bit of a personal example, which then applies to the professional world. In 2018, I got the horrifying diagnosis of cancer. And yes, naturally, I was in victim mode for some time. The mindset that I chose instead was the mindset of empowered. So from the mindset of victim, I used to think, poor me, why me? The world has done me wrong. I used to feel very disempowered, very weak, very sad and very angry. And I began to withdraw and just not want to be part of anything in life. And that had reinforced that victim mindset. Now, when I was able to shift to empowered mindsets, I started to think different thoughts, asking myself, what can I take control of? What can I do to help myself? As a result, I felt stronger. I felt more at peace. I felt more fulfilled to be at choice. And the behavior that I also had changed into more active. I continued to live as normally as I could, surrounding myself with people that I love and choosing all the things that made me feel in resonance and fulfilled. And that reinforced the empowered mindset. Now, a couple of ways of breaking into that cycle, and possibly the simplest one, is to start thinking new thoughts. Right. So somebody has taken in a corporate context, going back to the acquisition example, my company is being overtaken. My first thought is, I'm going to lose my job. So how can I change that thought? How can I make that into an affirmative? So instead of thinking I'm going to lose my job, my family is going to struggle, etc., I might start to wonder, I wonder what brilliant opportunity might come out of this acquisition. A new door will open for me. Unexpected surprises might be coming my way. Maybe I get a promotion. Maybe I get an amazing package and I don't have to work for 6 months, right? We can choose the thoughts that we think, and that's a great way to break into the cycle of mindset, thoughts, emotions, behavior, mindset. Another way also, if we struggle to change our thoughts, is to take an action, right? That's also possible. So for instance, rather than let's say that, you know, I'm crying, I'm feeling sad, I'm at home, I'm not having contact with people. Perhaps taking an action would be to go and look for other job opportunities, to do an interview, right? And when we take action, we start to see the possibilities that are around us, right? And that also then influences the mindset. So the key point to take away from here is that change begins with your mindset, and that you can change your mindset by thinking differently and taking different action. One final thing I would add here is, especially on the how to shift the mindset. Often I notice that clients are taking things very seriously. And it's normal, right? So if there's a big change, it is affecting us, so it's serious. And I'd like to play the game of comedy filmmaking. If you were a producer that were to describe the movie of your life right now in a funny way, what might that sound like? What might that look like? So that's a very nice and easy way to shift gears. I have used it in my journey with cancer, which of course is not a fun, it's not a light journey, but humor absolutely helped to lighten up this situation. And so it is my belief that humor can brighten up corporate related situations also.
Love it. I really love it. Yeah, and if I may add to that on the mindset part, I think that's why during big changes in organizations, it's very important to keep communicating. Often I've heard, you know, I've been in situations very structured in terms of, oh, we haven't achieved that milestone, so we are not going to say nothing to the organization until we have something good to say. But no matter whether, you know, good or bad, this is a label you give in terms of whether you want to celebrate success or you just want to send an update. But exactly to the point of the SEO, when it comes to managing mindset of your people, you don't know what they're thinking. There's no way for you to know all the fears that people are experiencing. But by having frequent and different types of communication, not just the formal type of one leader communicates to 1,000 people, but equipping your people managers to talk about the change, to talk about the outcome of the change, to the possibilities of the change, having funny videos talking about the change, or just bringing different corners of the change through the different channels within the organization, and keeping the conversation lively and addressing the different milestones, the different parts of that change journey that you all are on, is of extreme importance to take away some of those fears, to create these ideas of opportunity, to help your people, you know, navigate their own way of thinking towards that change, and equipping them with information that they can then, on their turn, decide how they would like to, you know, how they would like to, what is the right word? Communicate with the change, not, but like how they would like to interact with the change, whether this is the organization I would like to continue working, or if there is another department that will suit me, my ambition, and the further development of the organization. But that happens only if the organization, in terms of leadership, provides that information on a regular basis in an accessible manner, in both, I would say, formal channels and informal channels, because the informal are often much more important than the formal. And by informal, I would say like personal, private conversations, team meetings, town hall meetings, where you have direct connection with people and people can actually ask questions. And I like a lot about what you said about humor can lighten even the darkest situation. I can totally relate to that. And it's something that we indeed forget when we get into that victim mode, into that fear state. It's all very serious. It's all very dramatic and tragic. And humor can get you out of it, can shake you a little bit, can break that loop of negativity that you mentioned, and give you a different perspective to look into your new to your situation from a new angle. In the close, unfortunately, we're almost towards the end of the talk, and I know we can spend long time to talk about unwanted change. I'm sure that everybody can relate to that. I'd like to talk a little bit more about resistance, and in particularly managing one's resistance, the personal resistance. And please look at that from the angle of the leader that needs to navigate the change, to lead the change, because a leader, we often, put them in that like a pedestal spot, but they are also humans. As you mentioned, we're all humans at the end. We have our own emotions, fears. Leaders also can experience resistance to change. They need to lead. So if you take resistance from the perspective of a leader and the ordinary employee that needs to deal with it, what would your tips in navigating through unwanted change?
Yeah, so resistance, again, is a very natural reaction and response to change in general, and especially to unwanted change. I've got two things here. I'll start with asking for help. This is really important. Just because you are the CEO of the organization or the department leader and a lot of people look up to you, it doesn't mean that, like you said, you're not human or you will not have resistance. So asking for help from others could be starting with expressing in a very genuine, vulnerable way that you are experiencing resistance. That helps for people to relate to you, because they think, okay, my leader is experiencing some difficulties in resistance. It's therefore normal that I'm resisting too. So now it becomes our joint problem. How can we resolve this together? Leaders can also reach out to specific key stakeholders around the business who are change makers or change agents or people that love change and see the positive side of it, to get advice from them, to help them to disseminate the positivity of the change that may be coming, and to rally people in a positive way. So that's asking for help. The second thing, and this is, as you know, Tanya, my favorite topic possibly around navigating change.
Celebrations.
Yes, absolutely. Every conversation begins and ends with a celebration. So building on your question of the resistance, right? One very important thing that helps is celebration. So when we think about resisting change, overcoming that resistance, and navigating through a specific change, building resilience, getting better at those things, we tend to think about discipline and being very harsh and being very structured and very serious. I would like to invite something that runs in parallel to the discipline and being serious, which is building resilience through celebrations. What does this mean? This means acknowledging the path that the team has traveled so far, right? An unwanted change arrives. It shakes our world, okay? So let's go back to the acquisition example. What is one thing that can be celebrated in that moment? Well, the history of our organization. We have delivered a massive legacy over the past X many years. We have built an amazingly strong team, so strong enough and so good enough that somebody wants to buy us, right? We are worth an investment of another organization. Now, sometimes it's a struggling company and that's why it's getting bought. But in any case, somebody is showing interest in investing their time in making your company better and stronger because they see the potential that is worthy of celebration. Another thing to celebrate in a difficult time like that is what are the team superpowers? What are the individual superpowers, right? What are we going to bring into this acquisition and into this merger? And then, of course, along the way, finding milestones. We completed the first part of the process. We're going to have a small celebration. Maybe it's a Friday afternoon coffee or cake. Maybe it's a team day out or a team weekend. It can be many, many small ways of doing that, or highlighting, how we have been overcoming resistance in the past week or the past month, small awards, things like that, which really are the drumbeat of the transition, the positive drumbeat of the transition. So building resilience and overcoming resistance through celebrations. And I'll end on this positive note. Do you want to add anything before I summarize the key points?
Yeah, something that you mentioned, I just want to amplify it, and that goes with almost every organizational change. When you hear the word change, you need to know that it's a moment where something old or something expected dies, so that for something new to begin. And whether it's a restructuring, whether it's a new leadership, whether it's a new strategy, it could be even a change that is long awaited. It's still the actual ritual of letting go of that thing that needs to die helps people a lot to, even if you like, with a change curve that is actually a grief curve, helps people to grieve for whatever hopes, expectations, work they've been doing. It gives them that ritual of, okay, now we let go of that, we acknowledge it. We don't say it's rubbish. We don't say it's bullshit. We don't say it's unnecessary. We just say that life changes, the world changes. We have chosen a different trajectory, a different path to take. So let's just, wave goodbye to that other part that is never to be happen, or that we just need to make peace with. Let's have that ritual together, and those celebrations, it's not just having fun together, it's just a moment of togetherness of that team, of that organization that has been putting a lot of work on doing something that right now needs to shift into a different direction. And that ritual of letting go, of making peace with the thing that needs to stay in the past, whatever it is as important as celebrating the achievements, as welcoming the new, and as just being, working towards a better team together in a new setting. So I just wanted to amplify that. Great point, Desi.
Thanks, Tanya. So to recap the 5 key points that we have talked through today. Number 1, change begins with your mindset. Number 2, humor can lighten even the darkest situation. Number 3, ask for help. Number 4, move towards your fear, not away from it. And number 5, build resilience through celebrations. Our next upcoming webinars are going to be, the November one is going to be on the topic of gratitude as a tool for transition, another favorite topic of mine. And then the December live webinar is going to be around conscious closings, which I can tell you Tanya is an absolute pro in this, and I can't wait to interview her for that. If you are curious to know more about these webinars or about the monthly letter which gets sent out before we do the webinars, please leave either one of us a private message or LinkedIn, and we'll let you know how to subscribe. And then I touched a little bit on it throughout the conversation. I didn't want this to be the focus, but my story of how I reached these 5 conclusions, or these 5 ways of navigating change, is also something that I share in an inspirational talk. So if you're curious, ask me, and I'll tell you more about that. But I'm really looking forward to seeing more of you. I genuinely hope this has recorded live. If it hasn't, we'll still post it. Thanks for your patience, and see you next month.
See you soon.